you got in the movie, it's actually more by Wichita in the middle of Kansas, but actually we're in Kansas City, Missouri proper. So we've grown up a lot over the years. It's a surprising culture hub, so to speak.
Though I'm actually very surprised. I work with pregnant people from all over, or they were born from all over. And of course, New York has people come from all over.
Yeah,
So I'm always pleasantly surprised at sort of what cool people are everywhere.
I know. It's
You know
crazy.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Sometimes you wouldn't know it by the press.
absolutely you wouldn't. Yeah, and that's the thing about life is that we have to get out and see. We have to explore because yeah, the media that we get and the things that get portrayed are just stereotypes and
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
one no one needs any of that.
No, no, because everything is always more rich and more complex.
Yes, it
Usually.
certainly is. It
Yeah.
certainly is. And speaking of, let's get into your story. You have a very rich, complex story, and
Kind of.
I'd love to begin our verbal journey by asking you 4 years ago, around April, we were starting to really kind of wrap our heads around this pandemic. If we go back to 2020, how did you survive the pandemic and how did it change you?
Well, interesting. I heard your last podcast
Okay.
and a bit of a similar story. First of all, even before the pandemic, I had started to work with a lot of people from Europe or from the Far East or other parts of the country. So I use Zoom.
Yeah.
I had my office in New York City, where, of course, all because I do cranial sacral work as well, and but people stopped coming, and I I think my husband may have lost some money, and I thought, okay, I'll stop paying for the office because I'm not really using it, and it means I won't be able to do the body work, which I love doing, but the majority of my work is really using dream birth imagery with people who want to get pregnant or who have some other kind of problem or are pregnant, blah, blah, blah. So, and the classes that I still take from the School of Images just switched. Well, they were always mixed. Some of us went to the school, and many people from Europe or China also Zoomed in or Skyped in at that point. I don't even know. So the change wasn't so major. I mean, I hate to say it, a little bit like the other person. I love my house. I love being in my house. Um, and um, I think even right during the end of the or the middle of the pandemic, I remodeled my kitchen, not in a big way, but in a big way enough that it made a big difference. Um, my one daughter had already graduated from college. The other had her last year. It's probably a bit the roughest for her,
Yeah.
also because she's very social. The other one was like me, hey, I don't have to go. That's okay.
Yeah.
Um, but the younger one, I think, not so fun for her.
Yeah.
But I have two daughters adopted from China, and my husband and I. And of course, we adopted our daughters when we were 48, the first daughter, and I was 50 for the second daughter. And my husband and I are the same age approximately.
Yeah.
But we did really well together.
Yeah.
I kind of, you get a little nervous. What's it going to be like? The four of us, and we have one bathroom, four adults. We're in a sort of a little, uh, I guess it's an apartment, but it's two stories and we have a yard. It's in Queens.
Yeah.
So, a short drive from the city
Yeah.
or subway ride. And you get a little nervous,
Yeah.
but I must say we did really, really well. They did a lot of painting, a lot of puzzle making, and I would watch. I don't really love doing puzzles, but every once in a while we would play games. But it was it was amazingly copacetic, to
Yeah,
use a word from jazz.
yeah.
Yeah,
I get it, and I hear that all the time. There's silver linings. And there's a level of people mentally that have buyer's remorse, like I'm not taken away from anything, and no one has to. I just think that our lives move so fast that it's good to slow down. Like my favorite function on my camera is the slow-mo thing. Because when I slow-mo down and I watch it, I'm like, wow, that's how it really looks.
that is cool. I frankly, thinking in a very big scale, bigger picture. Um, I think uh, the powers that be said, okay, we're going to stop you
Yeah.
guys. You guys are going insanely,
Uh-huh.
you know. And it was sort of amazing that we had blue skies, or China had blue skies. I went to China to, adopt my daughters. Whoa, not blue skies. And to sort of see that, where it used to be gray or dark gray, blue. And, I go, wow, it won't take too much
Yeah,
to clean up our world.
I know.
Days it
Uh-huh.
took, of not running those factories. So I frankly think, and I think it hasn't gone away yet because not enough people are listening to the message. It's also, we're all in this together, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone, everywhere is getting it. I do
Yeah.
think that the whole world needed a bit of a bop in the head. Hey,
Yeah.
guys.
And we got it for sure. So I'm curious in your line of work, before we get to how all of this began for you, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at Career Day. And one of the curious kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Oh,
answer that child?
okay. I do something really interesting and a little bit out of the box, so to speak. I help people get pregnant or help people do what they most want to do, but I help them with something called imagery or visualization. That's all of you do it. When you don't want to be someplace, you go in your mind, right? You
Yeah.
you play, kids are actually masters at this. I sometimes have to get grown-ups to end up doing what you guys do so well. I mean, frankly, I remember it, maybe not true for you, but when I was bored in a class, I was out.
Yeah.
I was out doing something very fun. So um, I do think, and I think you guys who are younger sort of know this, that the one of the ways to really get things to happen is to imagine them really being there. Now, in what I do, it's a little bit more fun, the visualizations. Um, you can jump over gates. You can see the baby come in and visit you in the garden even before it's born, because all of us could do that before. Not visit in the garden, but we knew. So does this make sense? Ask me anything else you need. Oh, third graders.
So let me ask you this. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I was trying to remember that third grade, oh, something really interesting. I had just moved to the United States. Okay. Third grade is 1 9 in third grade.
Yeah.
Oh, I came from Guatemala, a
Okay.
little country in Central America. My grandfather and his family, my mother's father, were quite famous. There was the big statue of my grandfather's grandfather. He was the most famous president of Guatemala. And of course, I would see it and I would go, well, I don't feel so famous. I would feel like, well, maybe when I grow up, because I felt very much odd man out. My father was American, American Jewish. I had curly hair. All my cousins had straight hair.
Yeah.
Um, you wouldn't know it, but I had much sort of light brown hair, especially for Latin America. It was much lighter.
Yeah.
And um, so um, everybody had, well, not everybody, but uh, uh, if you had some money, you had maids because you could pay maids very, very little.
Yeah.
And so when I came to the States, it was a super, super, super shock.
Yeah.
And we went straight to Westport, Connecticut. They had never, at that point, there weren't that many Latins. So the poor teachers did not know what to do with two kids. I was 9, my sister was 7, who really didn't know English. Okay, my parents would fight in English, so
Yeah.
I heard English.
Yeah.
And my father's parents spoke English, so English was somewhere in there, and I was learning it in school, but I was so embarrassed to speak.
Yeah.
Um, I would actually, our dining room had two green velvet curtains, and I never wanted to let anybody hear me. So when I was, I guess, 6, 7, I would wrap myself in the curtain and practice my English words, but they
Oh,
were very,
wow.
very minimal. You're learning the numbers.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you? So we go to Westport, Connecticut, and it's so different. In Guatemala, I only knew my extended family. Houses have big um, walls. You don't, and here there's no walls, neighbors, in any case, in third grade, I think I was really figuring out how to learn English.
Sure.
My sister and I learned it kids learn it so fast.
Yeah.
I think that I have 3 months when I first went to school that are a blur. And then I knew how to talk. So by
Wow.
3 months, some of the kids were incredibly nice to me.
Yeah.
If okay, to me, it was also, oh wow, look, it was a different world.
Yeah.
And so, what did I want to be? Very shortly after, I g- because I was so unhappy, I wanted to be crazy things like I'll be the first president of the United States.
Sure.
Oh, I'll be the most beautiful woman in the whole world. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
totally, totally. I mean, what I'm doing now is I couldn't even begin to imagine it, although I had a very active imagination.
Yeah.
I- In other words, actually, this is interesting. When I was 6, I remember sitting in the porch steps of a little house in Guatemala, and I would have images of intense dances. I had never seen dances like that, with costumes. So um, I could retreat into my imagination. When my parents fought a lot, I made up a family. I had a mother and father that were not my mother and father, and they didn't fight,
Yeah.
scream like crazy maniacs. I had I was one of 5 kids, and in reality, I had one sister.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would include my sister. Other times, she couldn't even be part of a family. Poor thing. I so I had an older brother and an older sister and a younger brother and sister. I was the most popular. They loved me.
Yeah.
So that's really what I was into in third grade.
Yeah. No, I dig it. No, I totally get it. So, what you're doing is you're really helping people. There's like a clairvoyance, a manifest destiny. How did this become your profession? How did this become your life?
Um, um, okay. Um, how did I become let me just think exactly how it happened. Okay, so I was part of the generation, um, the I guess we're the baby boomers really. Everything can happen anytime.
Yeah.
I did not really start to try to have kids eh, until quite late.
Yeah.
And of course, I was having trouble. And I didn't even meet my husband where I really wanted to do this. We were both 42. That's pretty old already. And
Sure.
going over to 43, at least I'm 8 months younger. So for him, I was almost 43. And all right. So lo and behold, we're having trouble. And he says, okay, we were doing IUI. IUI is before IVF, where you inject the sperm. Oh, Okay. Okay. This will be interesting. When I was 28 or 27, I was reading a book. It's a Seth book called The Nature of Personal Reality. That's when I first learned about all this type of work. And in the book, it says we can all be much, much older, healthier than you imagine. It's just a very strongly held belief and idea that's kind of uh, the whole world really believes you age.
Yeah.
And there I am. I'd already learned body work, which is a whole other thing, but we're not going to go there. And I'm thinking, I like this idea. So I I go, why not? So I start to tell my cells we're going to stay young. They're allowed to stay young. I'm erasing the aging program. Okay, lo and behold, I'm doing body work. Um, I meet my husband through the personals, which is really what kids do now with,
Yeah.
matches. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So as I'm doing body work, I'm working with one of my teachers. I'm on the table, Alexander technique, and he says something like, um, my really good friend, she's been psychic since she was 3, but um, he answered the phone. And he says, I never answer the phone. And I go, well, you know something? I Do you mind if I call her up? I'm skipping the part that you need to know. Did that Had that happen already? Yeah. I we go to a doctor to get pregnant, and I'm 46. Okay, for backtrack. We get married. And I go, I'm not going to have having a kid be the first problem we have. That will be a mess.
Yeah.
So I kind of tell my body, not yet, please, not yet. But of course, we're trying because we know logically we should. All right. Then we're not getting pregnant. So we go see a fertility doctor. I won't say his real name, but it sounds like Maniac because we ended up calling him Dr. Maniac because he was a bit of a maniac. So we we go and he says to me, listen, I don't want to waste your money. You were recommended to me, but your age, I mean, look, I'll give you a test to test your hormones. If they're above a certain level, I'm just going to recommend a really good adoption person. Go, okay. My hormones were of a late 20-year-old,
Wow.
and I was 46. I mean, that was the age when I said, hey, cells, let's stay kind of young.
Yeah.
So that to me was already like, oh wow, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And and also from that book, that was really Nature of Personal Reality, really opened things up for me.
Yeah.
I Even though I didn't know imagery, I went, there's a partner for me that's perfect. And I would just visualize, not a face, because I didn't want to um, restrict it, but just a meeting of how excited we were to meet each other. And about 3 months later, I met my husband,
Yeah.
okay. So then how did I do what I'm doing? So I called up the psychic that my Alexander technique knew. And basically, I started to work with her about the adoption, and she would say to me, it was such crazy things. She would say, well, at nighttime, you're going to visit your children at dream time so that they get to know your energy. And I was like, Say that again?" Okay, so I started to ponder that, even
Yeah.
though it made no sense to me. I mean, now I'm such an expert at this, it makes me laugh. But at that point, it was like, well,
Yeah.
and so we continue. She helps me through the adoption. And then she was, she, old Tibetans would talk through her. That's how she was psychic,
Yeah.
right? And and so I would call them patricious people. I didn't know who they were. I just knew that sometimes it wouldn't be like her talking.
Yeah.
And so they said to me, you need to work with pregnant people. And I was like, what do you mean? I never even got pregnant. How could this be? I can't do this.
Yeah.
And they said, no, no, you have something to offer them. And okay, this is what is crazy. They told me 4 years before I ever learned imagery, 4 years before I ever became a doula, that I would help mothers connect with their babies in the womb and even before they came in.
Yeah.
It was gobbledygook to me. I just wrote it down because I write down what people are saying,
Yeah.
it helps me listen. Okay. I did not, I fought, uh, uh, but everything fell in. I took a doula course. I did start to become a doula, but when I started to write this book much later, right? I go, oh yeah, Patricia, it all started a bit with Patricia. So I go get my notes, right? Of, that I used to take with Patricia, who passed away in 2006. And I read those words. I go, OMG, wow, that is really what I do big time.
Yeah.
I seem to be quite skilled at it. The imagery I was one that went to Catherine Schoenberg, who was an expert in imagery. Too many stories that we skip the story part of that. But uh, um, she taught us imagery for how to have a good pregnancy, um, uh, how to get rid of fears, how to get rid of mistaken beliefs. There was communication with the child, but not like I've taken it.
Yeah.
I kind of use every exercise because I know that they're listening. And so after almost any exercise, I say, can you ask the baby if they like that? And it becomes sort of shocking
Yeah.
to them and to me how much of a consciousness we all had before
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. So, Claudia, real quick, we're getting to a point now. Can we do a part two interview? Can we do this at a later date? I really want to delve in, and I've only scratched the surface, and I really want you to like take your time and put the story out
I,
there
I,
because it's
I
fascinating.
would I would love to. I would love to because I feel like I've had 10 lifetimes in one lifetime.
Yeah, I get that. I totally sense that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll just right now, just for the sake of time, because the way we started a little bit later, I want to make sure that we get all the rest of it in. So let's schedule this for a later date. This is part one, and we will get back into it. And however long it takes to get through it, we'll do it. But we'll leave it at this,
Perfect, perfect.
and
Thank
then
you.
we'll come right back into it. So Claudia, it was so nice to meet you, and I
Yeah.
look forward to picking this back up. And I'll just